In the soft embrace of a suburban dawn, the sky painted itself in gentle strokes of lavender and rose, a tranquil prelude to the day. My morning ritual was simple: a steaming cup of coffee and a quiet moment on the porch, the world still wrapped in the silence of sleep. The chair, a sturdy, weathered thing, held memories in its creaking bones, long conversations, quiet reflections, a pact between wood and soul. This morning, however, the calm shattered like fragile glass. A car door slammed with the force of intention, a herald of discontent. Karen strode down the street, her presence a storm of clipped heels and purpose. Her eyes, sharp as winter's morning, locked onto my chair. That old friend of mine, with a disdain that could curdle cream. I watched her approach, an orchestrated march of judgment. Her mouth moved, but the wind carried away her words, turning sharp syllables into a distant hum. The porch was mine, the lines of property clear and unambiguous, yet her eyes screamed of trespass. For the uninitiated, Karen was the neighborhood sentinel, self-appointed and relentless. She wore the mantle of vigilance with pride, a badge earned through countless minor grievances catalogued and unleashed upon unsuspecting residents. Her world was one of order and compliance, a rigid grid where anything out of place was an affront. Her first assault was silent. A note, a decree penned in neat, tight script, appeared in my mailbox. It spoke of harmony and aesthetics, of rules and regulations, each word a barb wrapped in politeness. The chair, it declared, was an aberration, a blemish on the neighborhood's pristine face. I read the note slowly, savoring each absurdity. There was irony in her ignorance, a delicious twist she had yet to unravel. I folded the paper and placed it on the mantel, a quiet laugh escaping my lips. It was merely the opening volley, and I was content to let the storm rage around me, an immovable rock in a sea of trivial waves. Days passed, and Karen's campaign intensified. The chair, steadfast and unmoved, became the symbol of resistance, both mine and its own. She enlisted allies, whispers among the hedges, conspiratorial glances exchanged over trimmed lawns. Yet, despite her fervor, my resolve remained untouched. Then came the morning of reckoning. The sun barely kissed the horizon when the wail of sirens shattered the dawn. I watched, bemused, as uniformed officers approached, their presence a testament to Karen's escalating desperation. The absurdity of the scene was not lost on me. A rush of vindication swelled within, tempered by the humor of it all. It was time. A quiet revelation, a card played close to my chest, now ready for its moment. I stepped forward, the porch creaking in acknowledgement. Her eyes, wide with incredulity, met mine. The words were simple, a gentle unraveling of her narrative. "I'm the HOA President." In that moment, the world seemed to pause, the air thick with the irony of it all. Her face, a canvas of disbelief and dawning realization, was a masterpiece in motion. The chair, my steadfast companion, remained as it was, a silent testament to patience and quiet power. And so, the stage was set for what would follow, the delicate dance between order and quiet rebellion. All that remained was the unfolding, a story still wrapped in the soft edges of possibility. The sun rose again, spilling morning light across the neighborhood, like a painter reclaiming a forgotten canvas. My mind lingered on the events of yesterday, a day that seemed to stretch into an ornate tapestry of absurdity. Our suburban microcosm teetered on the edge of chaos, all sparked by my innocuous porch chair. Karen's crusade was far from over. With a newfound fervor, she embarked on a relentless campaign to redefine community standards. Her presence was as persistent as the ticking of a clock, each second a reminder of her watchful eyes. New citations appeared almost daily, like unwelcome guests at a once harmonious gathering. The rules, once a gentle guide, morphed into tools of oppression under Karen's reign. A flower pot out of alignment, a flag too large by inches, a mailbox painted in unsanctioned hues, infractions imagined and exaggerated. Her influence spread like tendrils of a creeping vine, choking the spirit of our neighborhood. Neighbors whispered, their voices hushed but pervasive, a symphony of speculation and dissent. Stories twisted and turned, transforming my chair into a symbol of rebellion, a rallying cry against an unjust regime. Irony dripped from every conversation, the absurdity of it all like a tasteless joke told too many times. Karen's tactics grew bolder. She wielded gossip like a weapon, her words sharp as daggers. I could almost see the delight in her eyes as rumors took flight, fluttering from porch to porch, finding fertile ground in idle minds. Her disdain was palpable, a shadow cast over every interaction. Yet, for every seed of discord she sowed, there was a quiet resilience in the faces of those around me, a shared understanding that this, too, would pass. I felt the weight of my position as HOA President now more than ever, a mantle of quiet authority, often invisible, yet undeniable. Karen may have claimed the day-to-day skirmishes, but I held the power of the pen, the bylaws written and revised under my watchful eye. Her ignorance was both her armor and her Achilles' heel. In the quiet corners of my mind, a plan unfurled, a patient strategy, crafted not from malice, but necessity. For every action, a counteraction. For every rule she twisted, a clarification. It was not a battle of wills, but a dance of understanding, a reminder that the rules she so adored were born from a collective desire for harmony, not control. I imagined the upcoming meeting, a gathering where truth would slip through the cracks in her facade like sunlight through blinds. There was power in the simple, the ordinary. A porch chair, a shared smile, the unwavering belief that this neighborhood was more than the sum of its rules. The stage was set, the players committed to their roles. Karen's orchestration faltered, notes discordant in the symphony of our lives. I watched, waited, and prepared, knowing that patience was my ally and time, an inevitable equalizer. In the end, it would not be a grand revelation, but a quiet reckoning, a return to balance, a gentle reminder that power, when wielded with grace, could restore even the most fractured of communities. And so the story unfolded, not with a roar, but with the soft, steady cadence of understanding. The morning sun dripped like honey over the neighborhood, its golden tendrils slowly warming the chilled earth. I sat at my desk, a fortress of calm amidst the chaos, surrounded by neatly stacked papers and the occasional potted plant. Each document was a testament to the quiet strength I wielded, proof of the meticulous record-keeping the position of HOA President demanded. It was my armor, my shield against the storm that was Karen. Karen, who had stormed into the tranquility of suburbia like a whirlwind, threatening to upend the careful order I maintained. Her voice, shrill and insistent, still reverberated in my mind. A siren call to chaos. The memory of her dialing 911 over my supposedly offensive porch chair lingered like an unpleasant aftertaste. I had watched from my window as she gestured wildly, her silhouette animated by righteous indignation. It was a performance, and I was the sole, bemused audience. Her complaint had been as audacious as it was absurd. A chair, of all things, a humble piece of furniture painted a soft shade of blue, nestled quietly on my porch. To her, it was an affront, a violation of her imagined code of aesthetics. In reality, it was nothing more than a symbol of her need for control. I had allowed her to have her moment, allowed the officers, kind, understanding eyes beneath regulation caps, to assess the scene with the gravity it deserved. They had left with barely concealed smiles, their amusement a balm to my tempered patience. Now, as I sifted through documents and emails, I prepared my subtle counter. It was not retribution I sought, but rather a course correction, a reminder to Karen that there were boundaries even she could not cross. The HOA's power was often misunderstood, its rules dismissed as trivial. But within those rules lay the power to shape this community, to balance it. The monthly HOA meeting approached, a gathering where facades slipped and true intentions revealed themselves. I had spent weeks documenting everything, Photographs of compliant lawns, trimmed hedges, and the occasional non-compliant porch chair, each image a silent ally in my campaign for reason. Karen would be there, of course, her presence as predictable as the morning paper. She would sit near the front, her gaze a challenge, her lips pursed as if to trap any dissent before it could emerge. The room would be filled with the low hum of neighborly chatter, punctuated by the occasional clink of a coffee cup. A perfect setting for the quiet unveiling of truth. When the moment came, it was with the grace of a well-rehearsed symphony. The projector cast a soft glow across the room, illuminating the images I'd collected, each slide a stroke of reality, painting a picture of harmony disrupted only by those who misunderstood it. The irony was not lost on the audience, nor on Karen, whose eyes narrowed, her facade cracking ever so slightly. A single line of dialogue, my only indulgence in the spoken word, broke the silence. It was a reminder, gentle yet firm, of the role we all played in maintaining the delicate balance of our community. Karen's reaction was a complex ballet of emotion, a shift from indignation to reluctant understanding. The change was subtle, but it was there, etched in the softening lines of her face. In the aftermath, the neighborhood settled back into its rhythm. The sun continued its lazy descent, casting long shadows across my porch. The chair sat there, unchanged, a testament to resilience. And as I watched from my window, I knew that order had been restored, not through confrontation, but through quiet, unyielding resolve. The morning light filtered gently through the blinds, casting pale stripes across the living room floor. The air was cool, tinged with the scent of dew and the fresh promise of a new day. Yet beneath this serene facade, a quiet storm brewed, an electric anticipation in the atmosphere. It was as if the neighborhood itself was holding its breath, waiting for the next inevitable clash. News of the previous day's events spread like wildfire, fueled by hushed whispers and furtive glances. Neighbors, previously absorbed in their routines, paused on their walks, their eyes flicking towards Karen's house, where her meticulously pruned rose bushes stood like sentinels, unaware of the battles waged nearby. Karen. Her name had become a sort of local legend, whispered with a mix of incredulity and disdain. The porch chair incident had been the tipping point, the moment her facade of righteousness cracked to reveal the brittle insecurity beneath. In the quiet hours of the evening, I had stood on my porch, surveying the neighborhood, feeling the weight of their unspoken questions, the silent calculus of blame and support shifting in the community's collective consciousness. I wandered into the kitchen, the cool tiles grounding me as I poured myself a cup of coffee, the aroma rich and comforting. It was a ritual that steadied me, a brief reprieve before stepping back into the fray. I had always been a quiet leader, preferring to navigate the complexities of our community with a steady hand and a knowing smile. However, Karen's actions had forced my hand, propelling me into the spotlight with a force both unexpected and undeniable. The phone sat on the counter like a coiled snake, silent yet full of potential. I knew it would ring soon. It wouldn't be long before someone reached out, seeking confirmation or clarity, eager to dissect the drama that had unfolded so publicly. I wasn't sure who it would be first. Perhaps Diane, with her penchant for gossip under the guise of concern, or maybe Old Man Thompson, who had once confided his fondness for my taste in garden furniture. I sipped my coffee, the warmth spreading through me, a stark contrast to the chill of anticipation. The community was a living entity, each resident a cell within a larger organism, all interconnected, yet distinctly individual. This situation had stirred the pot, awakening dormant alliances and rivalries, setting the stage for a confrontation that was both inevitable and necessary. Today would be crucial. The neighborhood was at a crossroads, and it was my responsibility to steer it towards a path of understanding and cohesion. But how to do so without further inflaming Karen's indignation, without turning the simmering tensions into a full-blown conflagration? The key, I mused, lay in perception. To navigate this delicate balance, I needed to maintain my role, not as a combatant, but as a guardian of our communal peace. Karen's own obsessions would be her undoing, if managed carefully. Her need for control, her adherence to rules, could be redirected, rechanneled into something constructive rather than destructive. The phone rang, its shrill tones slicing through my contemplations. I let it ring twice before answering, each pause a deliberate assertion of calm. On the other end, a voice crackled with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. I listened, responding with measured words, feeling the tension begin to unravel, thread by thread. As the conversation concluded, I felt a shift within me, a clarity of purpose that had been elusive until this moment. The path was clear, and the steps required would demand patience, diplomacy, and a subtle strength. Karen had played her hand. Now it was time for mine. Performed with the precision of a maestro conducting a symphony, each note carefully crafted to lead the neighborhood towards harmony. Outside, the sun had risen fully, bathing the street in golden light. It was a new day, ripe with possibility, and I was ready to embrace the challenge it presented. The neighborhood was watching, waiting, and I, as its quiet champion, would meet its gaze unflinchingly, my resolve as unyielding as the cliffs that stood sentinel over the restless sea. The cool embrace of twilight lingered as I closed the door behind me, leaving behind the clatter of the evening news. Silence wrapped around the room like a comforting shawl, disturbed only by the soft ticking of the antique grandfather clock, a gift from my grandmother, and a stubborn reminder of the passage of time. Karen's voice still echoed in my head. Her sharp words were like arrows, fired over the simplest of things, a chair, its wood weathered by time, sitting on my porch as an affront to her sense of order. Her call to the police had been absurd, a melodrama that showcased her need for control, cloaked in the guise of neighborhood integrity. But I had not become HOA president by chance. Resilience and patience were my allies, far stronger than her bluster. Her surprise at discovering my role had been a delicious irony. Her face, usually a mask of rigid authority, had cracked at the revelation. It was a fleeting moment, but one that whispered of a shifting tide. I settled into the chair she so despised, the wood creaking under my weight. It had survived storms and sun, much like I had survived her. The legal document lay in my lap, crisp and definitive. I had waited, biding my time, allowing her to weave her own web of missteps. She had tangled herself nicely, each complaint documented meticulously, each overstep marked with quiet precision. We had rules for a reason, and she unwittingly had broken them with her zealous overreach. The irony was as sweet as summer fruit. I let the pages of the document rustle, their soft whisper a prelude to the shift that would come. There was power in understanding, in knowing the nuance of rules. She saw them in black and white, yet life had taught me the beauty of gray. Her call to 911 over a porch chair had been the crescendo of her misjudgment, a striking note that resonated in the board's ears. Finally. Her actions had drawn the wrong kind of attention, a spotlight she had never anticipated. Her reign as the self-appointed enforcer was nearing its end, not with the bang she perhaps imagined, but with the quiet shuffle of papers. The board meeting was scheduled for the following week. I would present the facts, not with malice, but with the calm assurance of someone who knew the landscape of justice. My role was not to punish, but to restore balance. The night deepened, a canvas of indigo and stars. I folded the document, placing it neatly on the table. My eyes drifted to the horizon, where light still lingered stubbornly. Change was coming, inevitable and just. But for now, I savored the moment of quiet triumph, the weight of the chair grounding me in the knowledge that sometimes the simplest actions can ripple outward, shifting the tide in their wake. A single sentence lingered in my mind, a reminder to myself and perhaps to Karen, wherever she was stewing in her self-made storm. Balance would be restored, quietly, powerfully, like the turning pages of an old book, revealing truths she had never bothered to see. The air was heavy with anticipation, as if the world itself held its breath. The community hall, usually a serene space echoing with casual chatter, now hummed with an undercurrent of tension. Neighbors shuffled in, eager and curious, their whispers a soft tide against the walls. I stood at the back, watching, observing. The chair, the infamous, unassuming chair, sat quietly beside me, a silent testament to absurdity and resilience. It had always been there, unchanged. A little weather-worn perch on my porch, a symbol of my rebellion, Karen had called it. I called it mine. Karen, red-faced and rigid, was at the front. She held the room captive, her voice a shrill crescendo of indignation. She had taken her grievances to the council, the neighborhood, and now she was here, demanding justice with the fervor of a zealot. Her words tumbled over one another, fueled by righteous fury. I let her speak, let her voice soar, filling the room with her narrative. It was a performance, a final act in a drama she had authored alone. People listened, some nodding absently, others casting sideways glances at me, curious and expectant. The irony was not lost on me. The very noise she created had become her undoing. She was the storm, but I was the calm eye at its center, unaffected and unshaken. I waited, patient as the earth beneath us, for the tide to turn. And it did. A soft murmur passed through the crowd. A shift, a slow, inevitable dawning. They began to remember. The meetings I had chaired, the neighborhood events I had organized, the quiet strength I had offered. They remembered, and the weight of that memory began to tip the balance. Karen faltered. Her words stumbled, losing their edge. The room, once her ally, was slipping from her grasp. She sensed it, a subtle shift in the air, and her eyes flicked towards me, searching for a foothold in the crumbling facade of her authority. I met her gaze, held it. Steady, unwavering. The room was still, the air charged with something unspoken, a realization perhaps. I stepped forward, letting the silence stretch, letting it speak for me. When I finally spoke, it was not to confront, but to connect. A gentle reminder of who we were as a community, what we stood for. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of truth. And truth, I had learned, was a force more powerful than any shouted accusation. Karen's shoulders slumped, the fight draining from her with each syllable. She had called for justice, but justice, in its quiet, unyielding way, had found her. The room broke its silence with a soft rustle. Agreement, understanding, a quiet, collective exhalation. The tension dissipated, leaving clarity in its wake. As the meeting adjourned, neighbors approached me, their expressions warm, appreciative. We were a community again, mended and whole. The chair, once a symbol of contention, was now a thing of familiarity, an accepted part of the landscape. Karen lingered at the edge of the crowd, her presence diminished, a figure out of focus. She had been sidelined not by force, but by the gentle, undeniable power of unity. She turned away, her retreat quiet and unnoticed by most, but not by me. I watched her go, a faint pang of empathy stirring within me. Her downfall had been her own making, but still, there was a lesson in it for us all. A reminder of how easily division could creep in, and how vital it was to stand together. The chair, now just a chair, accompanied me home. It was nothing special, yet it had held the power to unravel and restore. I placed it back on the porch, its rightful place, and sat for a moment, letting the evening settle around me. The world moved on, as it always did, but tonight the air was clearer, and the stars seemed a bit brighter, scattered across the sky like a promise. We had weathered the storm, and now, at last, there was peace.